All right, so after you download the files, please unpack them in a folder that you have access and place it and open the architectural file. I see Urmila just call in. Urmila, I'm going to paste the link on the chat panel on where this data set for today class is.
Okay, great. Thanks, Caesar.
Yeah.
Sorry, got a little late, had to finish a few things.
No problem. Files are in Revit 2023. So open Autobahn architectural from that set of files. And as I mentioned earlier, this is a real school project by a real firm working with real consultants, and it's on design development phase. I showed you earlier on the class how to use all the different tools for model creation. So I think a lot of the basic introductory modeling tools are already covered. This is the school. It's a very a one-story building. I don't know the actual location or where the school is, but it's reflect the building templates and the building standards of this particular design company. If you open the project browser, there's a lot of different views already created for us, including a set of sheets and schedules and legends and elevation sections. I want us to start looking at some of the sheets here. So if you want to open just the cover sheet, that's the first sheet in the project. This is a when we create sheets in Revit, we have to pick what is the title block size that we're going to make the set. And this
Either, if I can interrupt.
Yes.
Somehow I'm not able to download it. It says unable to download. I don't know if anyone else is facing that issue. The link that you pasted, what's that called? Audubon.
You know what it is? I think it is because I have opened the file from there, and the temporary files used to let me build another, make a copy and put it somewhere else. Let's see, drive a bit. They should be working. Let me copy this and we'll create another new folder. Audubon. Share with Google Drive. Anyone that the link is an editor, copy link. All right, let me see if this link work. I pasted again in the chat panel. So if you are having issues with the file, please feel free to download it from here. Urmila, let me know if this works. Okay, so let's talk about the Revit documentation. So project delivery in Revit is the aggregate contribution of multiple trades working in tandem in a Revit project. And so a lot of our deliverables are require us to create a set of sheets for a trade. Every trade developed its own building that are cross-linked using shared coordinates. And this documentation, it's living in the project under the Sheets branch of the project browser. And here you can see that this project has a design development set in progress. So to understand a little bit how the documentation works, we have sheets. Sheets are populated with notes, annotations, and two-dimensional details. And then we place on top of the sheet views that that display sections of the model. Yeah, so you place plan views, details, sections, and elevations. In the project browser, started in Revit 2023, you have a color code box that is a visual indication that a view has been made part of a sheet. So when this box it's filled as in blue color, this is a visual indication that that view or that particular view, it's part of a sheet. So to investigate how that works, let's, like, for example, click on any of the views that has this blue color. And if you look at the properties of that view and scroll down, you're going to see that there are some reporting parameters that indicate where that view lives. In this case, this view, I just selected this bulletin 13. This view is sitting on sheet B13-2. The name of the sheet is barn door support. And it's referencing a sheet A14 alt. A reference sheet means that there are details in this view, in this sheet, that are calling out this floor plan. In other words, when you can have the floor plan or a section, for example, a section living in one view, but then you can make reference sections in other views, in other sheets as well of the same section. And that's what's called a reference sheet. When a section is when the view, when that sheet is being called out in a different sheet. And so these are reporting details, reporting parameters. And if you continue scrolling down, let's look at another example. I'm going to click this first floor signage. It's in blue color. So this view is sitting on sheet A13. And pick another one. Pick one that is now empty, is not in blue color. And when you do that, notice how now it doesn't have that reporting information because this view hasn't been placed in any sheet yet. But the bubble is being referenced in this sheet. So it hasn't been placed in any, the view hasn't been placed in any sheet, but there's a reference detail living in a sheet. Now, if you keep scrolling down, let's see, open the schedules. Same with schedules. There are schedules that have been placed on the sheet, like coded notes, for example. It's blue, that means that it's been placed on a sheet. And There are also, like if you want to look at details, scroll up and look for view type called details, elevations, sections, detail views. These are type of details, and you can see there's a lot of details that haven't been placed on sheets, but there are some that have. For example, the jam detail is living on sheet A5, and the name of the sheet is details. All right, so if you look at the sheet section and click the plus sign next to any sheet, you're going to see, for example, I opened the plus sign next to the interior elevations, and the project browser reports what are all the different views placed on that sheet. So visually, if you double click sheet A74, that's going to open the interior elevations. And so there are 8 interior elevations views placed in this view, and there are 2 legends. So the sheet reports on in the project browser what are all the different views living on it. And if you zoom in, notice also that you can activate a view by double clicking the viewport. If you activate a viewport, then you can actually start editing and making changes to that elevation. Double click outside of the viewport to go back to the sheet space. So if you're familiar with AutoCAD, this is like similar to paper space and model space. Click in the viewport, activate the model. Click in the viewport, activate the sheet space. This is a general note and elevation. So on the sheet, you can place text. This is a legend, I believe. And the legend, when you double click it, you can actually edit the legend. A view can only live in one sheet at a time. So you don't have to do this, but this is elevation corridor 114 east. So if I attempt to add an interior and an elevation in a sheet, but that view is already placed somewhere else, Revit is going to get angry. You see, this is corridor 114 east. If I drag it and drop it in this sheet, Revit is preventing you from placing 2 views in 2 different sheets. So this view is already placed in this sheet, so you cannot place it there. And that's a good thing, right? You don't want to confuse the contractor by having the same elevation in 2 different spots. But a legend, that's the difference of a legend. A legend can be placed in multiple sheets at a time. And so the same legend, which is this block of notes, the same block of notes can be actually placed in multiple sheets at a time. And this is the beauty of having a legend. So when you structure your construction set, you can think about a legend as something that can be placed on multiple sheets. But views, 3-dimensional views, can only live in a single sheet.
Is there no override for that? Just say you had a special case where maybe you had some specialty info that you wanted to add with the same view, but on a different sheet. Or perhaps it's something not for the contractor, but for, I don't know, for the client or for some other pricing or such.
Yes, and here's an example. Here is a bulletin 27, which was probably an amendment to the sheet, but instead of issuing the entire sheet, you just issue that particular elevation. And so what you do is you duplicate the view. It's not going to be the same one, but you can amend or make annotation changes to the view to add clarifications or to respond to an RFI, for example. But it's technically not the same view, it's just a duplication of the view. Sorry, Namarata, is that a question for? I guess that's just a noise.
So the same reference, the elevation you've drawn, it's still updating, or it's still the same, coming from the same source?
The geometry is coming from the same place, but the two-dimensional information, the view-specific information, if you change it in one view, it's not going to change on the other one. Here's another alternate. This is these two views. Bulletin 27 was derived from this one. You can sorry, Namarata, unmute you. Corridor 114 East, you can duplicate it as a dependent. And when you do that, these two guys are exactly the same mirror images. So, and that includes the two-dimensional aspects of it. So for example, this is Duckworth South. I'm just going to edit this Duckworth to the south and north. I'm making a change in the text because this is a dependent view. Notice how the parent view reflects the change of the dependent view. And then the parent view can be placed in one sheet. The dependent view can also be placed in another sheet. So when you duplicate a view as a dependent, you can have this bidirectional relationship, and changes in the parent view are translated into the dependent views, and then dependent views changes can also transfer to the parent view. That's an alternate if you really want to synchronize the text or the two-dimensional aspects of a view. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Okay, there are also views that are just partially placed on a sheet. Let's see. And this is usually the case of rooms. So I'm going to open sheet A74. Sheet A74. Supposed to have a schedule here. This is a legend. This is a legend. Oh no, this is schedule. Oh, there's the door frame. This is a door schedule. And to know what sheet it is, I need to look at the view properties. Should I was able to look at this here? Let's look for the sheet of Dora and Howard schedule. So as you can tell in this view, we have a combination of, if I click the plus sign, it's telling me that it has all different type of views. It has detail views. It has drafting views. The difference between a detail view and a drafting view is that the drafting view is a two-dimensional detail. It's typical. A drafting view is the space for two-dimensional drafting. A drafting view is not parametrically related to the model, but it's used to convey typical details. And so hollow metal jamb for the doors, all of these are drafting views. A detail views is parametrically related, extracted from a 3D view. We have elevation views, we have legend, and we have a schedule. And then a schedule in Revit. When a schedule is too big or is too large, you can actually split the schedule into different sheets. You have a big commercial building, and the list of sheets, for example, or the list of doors, is beyond the sheets to contain. Then you can create a partial schedule and place it in one sheet, and then the rest of the schedule, put it in another sheet. And when that happens, the schedule, the color of the schedule, it's like half blue, half white. In this particular example, the schedule is not long enough to make it, to split it. But usually the way you split a schedule is you select the schedule, and you see this, again, I am on sheet A6-1 if you want to follow along. You select the schedule, and then you see this bracket on the left side. If you click this, then I have two schedules side by side. And then by default, Revit split the schedules in half. And if only half of the schedule fits on the sheet, I can delete the one half. And what happens, look at the door frame schedule now. Now it has this half blue, half white schedule. And this is a visual indication, hey, user, you didn't place the entire schedule on the sheet. Like half of the schedule is living in one sheet, and then half of the other schedule is not placed. This is an exception to the solid colors. So I'm going to undo, because I was just talking about the colors coding in the project browser, and that's something new in Revit 2023. Okay, the other thing that happens when we assemble a set of documents is that Revit automatically is going to cross-reference any intersecting section in the view. So I am again on sheet A6.1. And if you look at this detail, detail 12, there is an unplaced section on the project. These are not placed by the user on this view. These are maybe placed at the overall plans, but Revit take care of adding all these all these cross references that are detected by the working plane of the view. So if the working plane of the view, which is the working plane is the plane that defines what the section is, if that working plane intersects other view references, like other sections, Revit automatically is going to report them in the view. Okay, so let's go back. Let's create a sheet. A sheet is created under the View tab, and then you go under Sheet. These are the title blocks available from this company template. This project has all these different title blocks loaded for construction documentation. So you see it has bulletin 8.5 by 11. It has different size of sheets for different construction purposes. It has an 11 by 17. It has vertical, horizontal, and all these different title blocks should be, if you're working in a company that does Revit, all these title blocks, like one of the first things you do when you implement Revit, make sure that you have your typical company title blocks. And I believe this project is 30 by 42. That's a typical size. So select the typical 30 by 42 sheet title block, hit OK. And this is the new sheet. Where is that sheet? If you scroll down, Revit automatically give a name and a number to this sheet. And the name and the number is actually based on the last sequential number in the set of drawings. So whoever created this project, the last sheet that was created was the EQP 1.2. I don't know what this means. I think this was EQ, maybe equipment. This was maybe a specialty. Well, let's read it. Yeah, this was probably the specialty equipment facades. These are the facade sheets. And because this was the last sheet to be created, then Revit automatically followed the sequence. And LQP 1.3, that's the next one in the sequence. And Revit name it. Give it an automatic name. Now, two sheets cannot have the same number. So see what happens when I do that. I'm going to rename this sheet. And I'm going to call it something that is existing. For example, FC20, which is above FC20. And yes, Revit get angry. And that's a good thing. You don't want two sheets to be called the same number. And then it says this number is already in use. You cannot do this, and you hit cancel here. Now you can argue, hey, but we have sometimes multiple documentation packages for different agencies or for different recipients, and I need to basically create a cover sheet for each of these packages. What do I do about it? And that's usually the case of a cover sheet. Cover sheets, for example, if you, and this is a workaround, this is not a perfect solution, but sometimes you need a cover sheet for different sheet packages. And so companies sometimes create a special sheet or a special title block that instead of reporting a smart tag or a smart parametric sheet number, it actually only reports generic text. And so you can put on this on the title block a text-based parameter, and you can actually have multiple copies of the same sheet or the same title block, and actually be named the same, but we're actually fooling Revit to believe that it's the same thing, but it's actually not. It's two different sheets. It's just the reporting information, it's different. And that may be the case, you know, when you are submitting something for the city, and another one maybe for another agency review, and the cover sheet needs to be called A00 in both of them. Two different packages, same sheet, but two different. This is a workaround. Okay. Then any questions? Let's look at, there is a sheet. We were looking at sheets, so let's go under the sheet I just created. This is the title block. And notice that this automatically reports the information in the title block. You can change the properties to get the properties back. You can change the properties of a sheet directly on the sheet. And you can just type and give it a new name. I'm going to call this EQ equipment 1.1. And you can also give it a name directly here. So this is equipment plan. The sheet name can be repeated, but the sheet number cannot be repeated. Notice also that there's a schedule of revisions. We're going to talk about revisions later in the class. There's a class just focused on sheet control. There's information that is automatically extracted from the project information. For example, the date, information about the project lives under the project info. So if you go to the Manage tab and look at the project information, these are project-wide parameters that can be inserted in title blocks. And these include the organization name, building name, the author. Here is the project issue date, status, address, project name, project number. This is important because if you make a change in the project-wide, if you make project-wide changes on the project information, this information is transferred across all the sheets at the same time. So say, for example, oh, the client decided to change the project name. This is called Branch Insurance Auto Loan Center. Let's say, oh, it's no longer become the Autobahn Center, but is the, I'm going to remove the Autobahn word here. And the project name, it's a project data that it's embedded in all the sheets. And as soon as you change the project name, then every sheet in every title block is going to make, you're going to see now in every sheet here that the project name has changed. So that's a good thing, right? You want to do this once. You don't want to make this in every view. I'll go back and take it the way it was before. So go back to project name, Branch Insurance Audubon Center. I'm not going to talk much about title blocks or how to create one. I'm just gonna, you don't have to do this. I'm just gonna open the family to show you just very quickly how a title block works. Here you have, these are parameters. And these parameters, when you edit the type, when you edit this, these are considered labels. And this is how you report parameters from the sheet category. And then you embed them into the family so that they can inherit all the properties from all the project-wide properties. So there is a conduit to report project information. I'm going to close it. Okay, so let's go back to the sheet I just created. So this was the EQ. I know, I think I call it. Did I call it EQ 1.1 equipment plan? So the way you place, I think this is the easy part of Revit. You drag and drop views into the sheet. You cannot drop the same detail as I mentioned. Go ahead and you see, if you open the interior elevations, you can see what views are part of the set and which are not part of the set. Scroll down under the detail views, under the detailed branch. There's detail 42, 46, 50, 54, and 65. Those haven't been placed. The jam details haven't been placed either. And so if this was a detail sheet, you can just drag and drop detail and then place it on a sheet. I can see that a lot of these are probably working sheets, working details. This is another one, same thing. There isn't a lot of information on this because these views hasn't been prepared for construction. You can delete a viewport and then automatically delete it from the sheet. Let's see, detail 42, just drag it and drop it. These are probably working details as well. They probably don't have a lot of information. But when you create like an enlarged detail, or this is the extent of the information you get out of the model, and then you enhance this model with two-dimensional details. Let's see, all these details are probably working details. And so they're not gonna have a lot of information. Yep. And that's how you start building a sheet with details. The detail title automatically assign a number. So the first detail that is brought into the sheet, that's detail number 1, detail number 2, detail number 3. And then you can rename the properties of the detail in the property window. You can add, change the title on sheet. And this will be enlarge column detail. And I am changing the name of the detail here. This is a particular standard for this company. I actually like it. It's just very, very simple, it's just 4 lines. This family of detailed title details, it's something that companies spend time making sure that is aligned with their branding, with the way they prefer to document technically a project. Let's bring, let's say, a legend. So if you go to the legends, there are some legends that haven't been placed in any sheets. Let's say, for example, this general notes demolition. which you would expect to see in a demolition plan. Just drag it and drop it. Legends, because legends can live in multiple sheets, then you usually remove the title. And so to disable the title of a view, you select the view. And then in this viewport type, there's one, viewports can have different type of reporting title blocks, reporting detailed title families. And for example, if you want to remove the title, just change it to the viewport that says no title. And then this legend is no longer reporting that title at the bottom. You can see that for this company, you have a viewport that has an embedded north arrow. This would make sense for that if you want to display a floor plan, for example, and this floor plan has an embedded north. But this is probably, this view title is not suitable for details because details don't have an orientation typically. Let's see again, if you select this, you can swap the family to, it says title and scale. This is a different family. Let's change another one. It says title only left. This removes the scale. It's probably good for this. Or you can have the title only 5-inch center, another type. So this type of viewport families, it's something that needs to be embedded in your template, and then let the user pick the appropriate one that is suitable for the type of view and the type of sheet. I'm going to say no title for this, which removes altogether the view title. And how does this work? I mean, if you want to set this on your end, it's part of the type properties. So these are custom parameters with different visibility controls associated with the family component. I need to teach you more about family editor in order to show you how to build something like this from scratch. But these are all the different types of viewport types. And then these are a combination of, do you want to show the extension line? Do you want to show the arrow north? Want to show the preserved position? These are all the different options. And so it's like creating a component family. This is a system family, actually. You can duplicate it and create additional visibility parameters as needed. Any questions? Let's look at a sheet that has a lot of details. So let's open sheet A5.1. So yes, what I love about this sheet is that all of these are detail views. What that means is that each of these, there's an underlying geometry that is coming from the model, and then there is geometry that is placed on top of the view to enhance the design intent. So I'm gonna activate this view, and I just want to show you here that this is a combination of both the underlying 3D geometry and the geometry coming from two-dimensional components. So I think a lot of these are just detail items. You know, when you start selecting all these different elements, you can see that these are two-dimensional items. These are lines, these are hatches, these are profiles that have been placed on top of the view. Yeah, these are fill regions. I'm not sure this is the best example of how to put together a good detail. Like, for example, this is a wood blocking or a representation of a wood blocking. It's made of lines. This is not the best example. I mean, a wood blocking needs to be a rectangular family, not a two-dimensional lines. But this is, for example, a detail item of a sill. This is not part of a 3D model. This company decided that this was the typical representation for sills and the windows for this project, and then just paste it on top of the view. But if you want to see what's coming from the detail, you can just duplicate this view without detailing. I'm going to duplicate detail 26. And this was all that was coming from the detail. Is the grid line. And these are probably floor finishes. Basically nothing is coming from the 3D model other than the grid line location. And then everything else, detail 26, everything, or it was here, everything else is two-dimensional details. So let me delete this again. I'm going to activate this, and the name of this is have seal detail. This is the these are typical details that were the way they are built led me to believe that they were created in AutoCAD, and then they were imported and pasted on top of the view, because there's a lot of, I don't see a lot of detail items in this. Here, for example, this is the jam detail. If I want to duplicate, this is the extent of the information coming from the 3D model, which is very coarse. There's not a lot of information coming from the model, but then everything else, everything you put on top of it is two-dimensional items. The fill regions, the backer roads, the storefront, the line wood, the edges, the moisture barrier, all of those are representation in lines, in the form of lines. And the only thing that are coming from the model is the rough geometry. Okay, any questions? All right, let's talk about, so this is how you arm a sheet, and this is how you drag and drop a detail into views, and you start forming your package. I'm going to close the sheet I created. I want to focus about creating some schedules and information contained by these elements. So I'm going to close everything. You can just click the close active, this button right here, close all the views in the project, close inactive views. And then I'm going to open in a floor plan. Under floor plans, there's a floor plan called First Floor Clean. All right, so one of the things about Revit is that, and I've been telling from the very start, Revit, the difference between a BIM-based project and an AutoCAD project is the ability for Revit objects to contain and report information. And so this information, which is in the form of parameters, can be made part of a schedule. A schedule is a two-dimensional is a tabular representation of parameters contained by different categories. And an example of those are the rooms. So again, open under the floor plans, open the branch called floor plans, and then open the first floor clean. And when you select, let's say a room is basically a three-dimensional boundary of room space. It has information about the name, the number, the occupancy, and it has finishes as well. North, wall finish, east finish, south finish, west finish, etc. And all that information can be made part of a schedule. So let's create a room schedule easily. Well, a room schedule is basically a way to expose the information contained by rooms in a tabular display. And we use room schedules to create finish schedules. That's probably or to quantify the area of each of the rooms and generate totals. Okay, so under the View tab, you find the Schedule tool, and you can create different types of schedules. You can quantify Revit elements using the schedule quantities. Create a graphic column schedule. This is mostly used by structural engineers. Material takeoff, which quantify the volume of materials in the project. We don't do a material takeoff too much unless we're doing some type of, I don't know, carbon footprint analysis, or you're sending this to a contractor and the contractor wants to quantify the volumes of concrete in the project, for example. A sheet list creates a list of sheets in the project. A node block, it's a schedule of annotation symbols. And a view list is mostly for quality control, how many views are in the project and what are the properties of them in a tabular display. But we're going to start a simple schedule of quantities. So this is our room schedule. So the first thing you need to do is to create a schedule of a certain category. So select the room category. Give it a name. I'm going to call this interior or finish schedule. Finish schedule. The schedules are sensitive to phase. I haven't talked about phase, but that's in the next class. And then hit OK. All right. These are the list of parameters available for you to schedule in the category of rooms. This is a combination of out-of-the-box parameters or custom created parameters. Custom created parameters are parameters that we add on top of the category that are suitable or they meet your production standards. You cannot tell just from looking at this what is out of the box and what is a custom parameter. I'm going to show you next, but there's a way to find out. So there's 31 different parameters that you can extract from the room category. And then what you do, you start selecting the parameter and using this green arrow to move the parameter into a schedule. The order of the schedule matters because the order of the schedule from top down is going to be the distribution of the parameters from left to right in a tabular display. So for a room schedule, we usually start with the room number. So pick the number parameter and hit the add parameter toggle. Notice how this parameter disappeared from the list. The other thing I want is the name. The other thing I want is the area. If this is going to be used for finishes, then I need to add finishes as well here. I'm going to add the floor finish. I'm going to add the base finish and always hit the add parameter toggle. The wall finish. And for the wall finishes, notice that this particular project has custom parameters. It doesn't just like one wall finish, you actually have different directional finishes. So let's start with the north wall finish, the east wall finish, the south wall finish, and the west wall finish. And maybe we add some comments. Oh, sorry, we have the ceiling finish as well. And we have some comments. And I think that's good enough for a finish schedule. So this finish schedule is based on parameter of a room. So it's not actually extracting material parameter from the wall objects. This is all just a text-based schedule. So don't make sure you don't confuse that. Sometimes we use a room parameter to associate textual information without extracting quantities or extracting the actual material from the project. If we want to do that, we can do it via material takeoff. But you will have to basically embed the texture and the material in every wall orientation. So I have all the parameters I need, and then I hit OK. This is going to create the room schedule for all the projects. Notice that there are rooms that haven't been placed, and an unplaced room it's a parameter that it's a room that it's in the Revit database, but it hasn't been actually associated with hasn't been placed in the project, and that's why I don't think I'd be able to compute totals here. Then we have floor finish, base finish, is ceiling finishes, and comments. I don't know why this ceiling finish has the word ventilation here. Let's generate a total. Like if we want to compute what is the total area, then we need to do something to the schedule to let Revit know that we want totals there. So any question here? You want me to repeat anything? A chance to speak up. Okay, so under the properties of the schedule, look for the appearance. So the schedule properties will display 6 different tabs. And notice that you have the fields tab, which correspond to this tab here. You have the filter tab that correspond with that one. The sorting and grouping that correspond with this tab. The formatting correspond with that one. The appearance appear with that one, and the bed schedule appear with that one. So every time you hit the edit button here, what you're actually doing is opening the tab associated with the schedule properties. Here you can revisit the list of parameters that are part of the project. The filter tab, it's a way to filter the information based on some data properties. For example, you may want to say, if the room is not placed, please don't calculate it. So you can say filter or just display the information that actually exists. So you can say filter or display only the results where the area has a value. So all those unplaced rooms will be removed. Hit OK here. And if you recall, I used to have a couple of rooms that said non-place. So I took care of them out. I don't want to see those. So that's under the filter. But you can filter by certain other parameters. For example, if you want to, one of the parameters I did not add here was the level. Like if you just want to narrow the results to rooms on level 1, you can do that here via filter. And then you can aggregate additional filter. You can restrict the results of the filter by adding additional parameter values. Filter by sheet. What this does is that if you place this schedule right next to a sheet, it's only going to display the items visible in the view. In other words, for example, if you're scheduling rooms and then you place this schedule right next to a sheet, then it's only going to display the visible elements that are in a sheet. When this is useful? When you're doing a schedule of annotations, for example, and you just want to display the keynotes that are visible in a sheet. So that's what filter by sheet is. I mean, just display the elements that are visible in the sheet that the schedule is placed. Sorting and grouping is how you want this data be sorted. So right now, it's not sorted by anything. I'm going to sort this by room number. When I do this, then you're going to see that the sorting parameter is the room number. The other thing I wanted to, the reason I'm doing, say again.
How does it sorted by default? Why wasn't it in numerical order, I guess?
In the order of room creation. And so it's usually based by the GUID, which is alphanumerical number. You don't see it is not explicitly visible in Revit, but it's the order in which these items were created. And I imagine when these were created, they place it first, and then there was another round in which they renumber them. But the number sequence didn't match the number, the number of the way in which they were created. So I think that's the default order.
Okay, thanks.
All right, so when you sort by number, number is the sorting parameter. The other thing is that you want to enable Revit to display the totals on those parameters that actually display a number or an area. So, and then you can say, well, give me a total. And please, you can say display title, count, and totals. Count means how many, like title is the title of the parameter, count is how many items, and totals is how many, what's the total amount. I can leave it like that. And itemize every instance means that please list everything in the project. If you disable itemize every instance, then elements that share the same, for example, elements that share the same number will not be listed. In Revit, in rooms, you can actually, is not a good practice, but you can actually have a room have the same number. Revit does that exception for the rooms. You can have multiple elements with the same number. Formatting. This is how you want certain parameters to be displayed. The data could be, you can change the orientation of the data. Like some data could be rotated vertically. But here, the important part here is that you want to select the parameters that you need to report totals. So I select the area here, and then where it says calculation, you can say, please calculate totals. So for Revit to report totals, two things need to happen. On the sorting and group, you must enable the grand totals. And on the formatting tab, you must select the parameters that you want to calculate totals. And when you hit OK here, then if you see at the very bottom, you have the total aggregated square foot. If any of the values, it has display an error, for example, it hasn't been calculated or it hasn't been defined in the project, then you're not going to get the total. You need to filter out those values. And I did that using the filter tool earlier. I told Revit only display the elements that have a value. And if they don't have a value, they're not displayed. The other thing you may want to do, notice how Revit has these row, like this gray row. I don't know why Revit does that, or no one uses this row. And so this gray row can be disabled if you go to formatting, and then you go to, you go to the appearance tab. You see there's this checkbox that says blank row before data. Disable that. You don't need that. This is, you want to enable the visibility of the green lines, yes or no. And if it's yes, what kind of line type? And you can choose from all the available line types in the project. Outline is the outermost outline of the project. If you want to have a different line weight for that, maybe you want to be a wide line, then the outline of the, this is only going to be visible when you drag and drop the schedule, but you can have an outline with a thicker line weight if you want. And this is a relatively new stuff. You can also assign a different color. Stripe rows allow you to like alternate rows. You can say the first row is a certain color, or the second is a different one. I'm not going to enable that. And then this is just, you want to display the title. This is just, yes and no. Do you want to display the headers? The headers are these. And this is to override the text style for the different components of the schedule. A new type for the family type for the title, for the header, and for the body. Embedded schedule. This is not used in architecture. This is mostly used by electrical panels. So I'm not going to get into it, but embedded schedule is basically have a schedule of the correlated elements of these categories with another categories. When you create electrical tables, sometimes they have embedded schedules. So I'm going to ignore that for now. All right, so I hit OK here. And yep, I got rid of that gray line. And now if you scroll down, I have the total, grand total. There's a total of 42 elements in this schedule, 13,000 plus square feet. Yep. Let me also show you that you can add, if you desire, you can add additional, you can merge certain, the header of the schedule. For example, the floor finish, the bay finish, the floor base north, the northeast, south, and west finishes. All of these are wall finishes. So if you like select and drag from row F, let's see if I can do this. Come on, this is what I want to do. You see, I click on F, and then I drag out. I want to like highlight. I highlight multiple header at a time. Then I can group them. You see? And then I can have, these are all wall finishes. This is like creating a group of, or it groups several columns under another header. Let me do it again. If you missed that, when undo this. So I start on F, the header of column F, the north wall finish. I want to group all the finishes of the walls. And then I just, you don't want to click and start editing the content cells. You just want to like, it's a little subtle movement. You basically drag from F to I. Notice how G, H, and I become black. F is actually selected, but this is the active cell, and that way it doesn't display black. But what I want to do is display all the header in black background. And after making that selection, you hit the group tool, and that makes a group in the header. And you can call this wall finishes. Now, the other thing you can do, you can override the column name, but this is not overriding the parameter. This is just for the purpose of the representation. So name is the parameter of the room name. If you want to be like override it, you can just click here and change this to room name. I'm just making a change in the column header, but I'm not changing the parameter. And the other thing you can do is, I think you can add color. Like if you want all these heads to have a different color, you can select the cell. You see where it says shading. Let's make it like a light gray. And then the header now display a different color. And same thing, I can drag multiple head cells and then select shading. I'm going to select this light gray. And now I have that shade color at the header. That's actually going to print. I forgot to do the numbers, so I'm going to do this here as well. Any questions? Okay, so the schedule is a reflection of the information contained by the rooms. And so you can edit the information in the model, or you can edit it in the schedule. And so I love using schedules to modify typical information on multiple rooms at a time. So say, for example, I mean, this is a quick way to change, to group elements by type. Let's see, I'm going to select the corridors, one of the corridors. They are spelled as CORR. And then you don't know where this corridor is. You can click this highlighting model, and Revit's going to, well, this is giving me a reminder to save. I'm going to save. Revit is going to open a view, and it will continue displaying views for you to understand what this room is, what the room is. This is a corridor there, and you can use the highlighting model to jump back and forth between the schedule and a view. And now you can add your finished code here. So if every corridor is going to have, I don't know, carpet, or is going to have VCT vinyl, maybe the finished code for the floor is VCT1, and the base finish is also VCT, and then the finishes, or all the corridors, is paint number 1. I'm just adding this one by one on the schedule. And then the finish, it's let's say is open. There's no ceiling in the corridors. So there's a lot of manual process, but you know, when I isolate this in the model, and then I select this room, notice that all the parameters are now listed in the room parameters. Now, if I want to, one way of, you know, if all the corridors are going to have the same parameters, then I can use some filtering in order to like aggregate, just input them all in the same time. So let me show you. Under the filter tool, I'm going to, sorry, under the sorting group, I'm not going to itemize every instance. And I'm also going to group elements by name. Sorry, I'm going to aggregate elements by name, not by number. I'm just going to do name and do not itemize it. And so this temporary change I'm doing to the schedule is only going to show a single value for the room, and it's going to aggregate all the corridors under the same line item, because I'm not itemizing it and I'm grouping all the elements under the name. So when I hit OK, I'm no longer going to have 42 elements. You see how I have multiple corridors grouped under the same line item. So the men's toilets, the classrooms, and the women toilets, they are all grouped under the same line item. So instead, if I know for sure that all of the corridors are going to have the same finishes, I just edit it under the same line item, and then all of them are going to be updated at the same time. So go back in this drop-down list, I see the options available for the different values. So VCT, I'm just picking from the drop-down list the value that I manually input. Notice that I have like 5 different corridors in the project. Now, with a single operation, I added the same values to the same room type. And then I go back to sorting and grouping, go back to sort by number, itemize every instance, and then notice how in a single operation, I populate all the corridors with the same values. I don't have to do this manually one by one. This is a tip to fill quickly information in schedules. And software, I could do this with the women and with the toilets, for example, if it's the toilets finishes are going to be the same across, then you can do that as well. All right, so this was the finished schedule. Let's add it to one of the sheets. So the sheet I created, I think it was called EQ11. EQ. Let me find that here. If you know, notice how the information in the project browser start growing a lot. So a quick way to sort information is using the right-click search. So if you hit on the views tree and you right-click, you can see that there's a search tool now. And you can say, find the EQ, anything that has the word EQ. And then it's going to start jumping. It's like doing a search in Excel. Start finding everything that has the word EQ. And I think I find it. There is EQ 1.1. That was the equipment plan. And then in this sheet, I'm going to add the schedule that I just created. So go to the schedule tab in the project browser and drag and drop the schedule I just created, the finished schedule. Drag and drop. And when you drag, you still have the opportunity to adjust the rows, the columns. These control arrows allow you to resize the the size of the column width. For example, if you want all the columns to have to be only one line, you can just drag the control to the right, and that makes the column wider. And I think I show you that you can break schedule in half. This control point or at the center of the schedule allow you to like manage the distribution of the data between the two schedules. You can continue splitting this in more segments. And then you can say, okay, I'm going to resize them equally. Here I'm going to lower that, and I'm like resizing the schedules. I'm making like three. I split the schedule in 3 parts. If you want to merge them back, just drag one on top of another one. So here I'm going to drop this on top of this one and see how it merge again. So click on the schedule, click the plus sign, and drop it on top of the other one. And it's going to merge the schedule again into a single one. So I'm looking at the time. This is a quick way to organize data in a tabular display. This is a room schedule, finish schedule. And there are other schedules here, like look at the furniture schedule here. This aggregates the count of items. And the way that works, if you look at the properties, there's a filter. No, there's a sorting and group by family. And notice that it disables the itemized every instance. And it does report as footer the title, the count, and the totals. And so for every family type, I can see a total. You can actually add like price and make calculator values to like create like a price schedule of your furnitures. Let me open another one. This is the door and frame schedule. This is something we do every day. This is a typical store schedule with a hardware setting. Codes here are also calculated from, these are just code nodes. So I think, yeah, these are just schedules of notes. These are placed on sheets. There's a glazing factor schedule here as well. So this has room numbers that have operable windows. I don't know why it says Sarah here. And wall materials takeoff. And this is the amount of area by exterior wall type. So, all right, this is how we create schedules. Next class, I'm going to show you how we can add custom parameters to schedules. So we're going to talk about project parameters and share parameters. We're going to use the same data set, so just save it. Any questions so far? If you want to stay after class for additional one-on-one, please stay online. Otherwise, I'm going to stop the share. I'm going to stop also the recording, and see you guys on Wednesday.
Thanks, Caesar. Thanks, Caesar. Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye,
Caesar.
guys. Bye.
Bye.